Have you ever wondered how many homeless people are in each state? I have. Every year or so I like to check these numbers. One thing that I've realized, unlike most stats, which should be done per capita or by rate, when you're counting the homeless, the total number is more alarming than the actual rate. Now, counting the homeless population is hard. It is hard to do a head count when you have people in your city that are sort of living off the grid, even though they're living within the grid. Organizations do what they can to get this head count, and they call it a point of time survey. It's sort of an estimate. It isn't perfect, but it's what we have. There's another problem with this stat. Groups that have political agendas often exaggerate their numbers. The people that are trying to gain political points use overblown numbers. You also have organizations that are, let's say, trying to get money to help the homeless. They like to exaggerate their numbers a little bit too. Meanwhile, cities and real estate agents try and play down the numbers. So you just have to accept that it's somewhere in the middle and look at the surveys that are a little more realistic. For an example, the other day I saw a clip of a right-wing news channel, and their guest said that California had over 1 million people that were homeless. He only missed the mark by over 800,000. The left has their exaggerations too. Nobody in the news is a saint these days. Now, before we get going, I'm going to show you the rate of all the states right here. These are the highest rates for 2023. You have states on this list that have a very high rate because they don't have a whole lot of people. Vermont doesn't have many homeless people at all, but they have 43 for every 10,000 residents. Look at Alaska. Alaska has 31. So yeah, that's why in this one it's a little more interesting to look at it from the total number. And that's what we're doing today. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Ohio. Ohio's homeless population, like many other states across the U.S., faces complex challenges that require thoughtful solutions. This is a very diverse homeless population, consisting of individuals and families from various backgrounds, including veterans, the mentally ill, and those struggling with addiction. Now, before we go any further, I understand that a large majority, about 75% of the people living on the streets, at least a couple years ago they said this, were suffering from addiction and mental health issues. And in a way, you got to give them help. Chances are most of them won't ever get off the streets. What you really need to focus on, and most states do, are the people that just ended up on the streets because a few too many missed paychecks, things like that. Help them get back on their feet and have a normal life. Obviously, the state's urban centers such as Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus bear the brunt of the homeless situation, with shelters often overcrowded and resources stretched very thin. You know, you would think you would move to a warmer climate if you're living homeless. I mean, nobody wants to live on the streets of Cleveland, period. But during the winter, it's a little extra unhealthy. There are 10,655 Ohio residents living on the streets. Number 9, Arizona. Arizona is another state that's got a good-sized homeless population, even though they face their own geographic and climate conditions that would normally deter people from moving there. The heat and just the terrain of Arizona makes it rough to be homeless there. Not a lot of shade in this state, especially in the places where the focal point is, like Phoenix and Tucson. In Arizona, most studies find that after mental illness and addiction problems, joblessness and a rising cost of living in Arizona is what's got a lot of people on the streets. Currently, there are 10,979 people living on the streets of Arizona. Number 8, Pennsylvania. The homeless population in Pennsylvania is a pressing issue that demands attention and action. Despite being one of the wealthiest states in the United States, Pennsylvania continues to grapple with a significant homeless population. Now, when I visit Pennsylvania most of the time, I stay in the rural areas. I have no need to go to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or anything like that. So when I first read this, I'm all, that's an awful lot for such a nice state. Then I remembered, oh yeah, they do have Philadelphia, don't they? And Philadelphia, most of their homeless are in this one area called Kensington, and that place is scary. Half the people there look like they're, auditioning for a post-apocalyptic zombie movie. They want to be zombies, and they're really good at it. Pennsylvania, though, does have a lot of really good programs they're working on right now to get people off the streets, at least the people that can get off the streets. Those zombies down there in Kensington, I think a lot of them, there's really no hope. You'd wish there would be. I mean, they're human beings that need some help. It's just a lot of them seem to be very, very far gone, a little too far gone. Pennsylvania currently has a homeless population of 13,375. Number 7, Oregon. Oregon, like many states in the US, face a significant challenge when it comes to homelessness. I honestly am surprised they're at number 7 and not like number 3 or number 2, something like that. I live not too far from Portland, Oregon, and yeah, we got a lot. They've moved them off the streets, so that's nice. There's no more tent cities in front of businesses, and they've moved them out of residential parks. These are steps in the right direction. They're getting these people to these safe rest zones, and they can get more help there and not affect the community, which is good. The city may return to some of its old glory, and these people are in a better place where they might be able to get better help. All the studies, though, about Portland and all of Oregon, our homeless situation, it has to do with affordable housing and a rising cost of living. Obviously, that's after addiction and mental illness. Those will always be the top 2, so I'll quit repeating that. Now, if you watch too much cable news, you've probably been told that Oregon, especially Portland, has about 100,000 homeless residents. Nowhere near. Right now, there are 14,655 homeless residents in Oregon. Number 6, Massachusetts. The homeless population in Massachusetts remains a pressing issue that warrants attention and action. Now, this is despite the state's reputation for being a very wealthy state and very progressive state. Homelessness still persists. They got many hurdles they got to get over. Their high cost of living, limited affordable housing options, and income inequality. This all feeds into their homeless situation. A majority of the homeless in Massachusetts you're going to find around the Boston metro area. The Boston metro area is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States, and so that's putting even more and more on the street after the big 2, addiction and mental illness. And it doesn't help, this is one of the coldest cities to live in during the winter, and they've got a lot of people on the streets. They've got to pour a lot of money into helping these people survive the winter every year. Living in a shelter is not free, even though it's free to them. Currently, there are 17,975 Massachusetts residents living on the street. Number 5, Washington State. This is another one that surprised me. They don't have as many people living on the street that I thought. The homeless situation in Washington State has been a persistent and complex issue, garnering a whole bunch of attention from different news outlets. That's all people talk about, especially when they're talking about Seattle, is they're just talking about the homeless situation. You don't know that it's a beautiful city because that's all they talk about. This is my own observation. I know people from Seattle and Washington will argue with me, but I live in Portland, and around 2018, 19, 20, 21, it was really bad. That's when they started really setting up little street-side villages in front of businesses and apartment buildings, things like that. Then you go up to Seattle, and they had more homeless, but you didn't see as much of that. Most were sleeping underneath the overpasses and the bridges and things of that nature. Now, I'm sure someone's going to give me a hard time and say I'm talking bad about these people. No, I think these people are in a horrible situation, and I think every American has the right to have a safe place to put their head down at night. But I also think the people that run in businesses and have their livelihood involved in a business have the right to have the sidewalk clear for people to come into their businesses. It's a nasty circle of life thing. So these people need a place to stay. They stay in front of a business. Now the business goes out of business, and the state gets less tax dollars, and that means less tax dollars to help the homeless, and it's just this nasty circle. I think that's why a lot of these places now have these safe rest spots. We have some out by the airport in Oregon. Currently, Washington State has 22,923 people living on the streets. Number 4, Texas. Now, this is where we get into the part of the list that they're just on here based on their population. The more people you have, the more likely you're going to have people living on the streets, or any situation. More people means more crime. More people means more poverty. But the homeless population in Texas presents multifaceted challenges that reflect both the state's economic diversity and the social disparities. Texas is home to a significant number of homeless individuals and families, with major urban centers like Houston, Dallas, and Austin grappling with this issue. I mean, Austin's pretty bad these days. I'm in Dallas currently as I'm recording this, and I've seen quite a few. Not nearly as much as I'd see in Portland or something like that, but they had a good number in downtown Dallas. I went to Dealey Plaza, and there's a whole bunch around there. I gave one guy, it was so hot. It's October, and it's like sweltering for Portland. It's like 92 degrees while I was there, and this one guy looked like he was just beat. And I had 2 bottles of water with me. I gave him one. In Portland, they would have asked if I had money too. This guy just said thank you. I was like, oh, great. Anyway, the Lone Star State has 28,929 people living on the streets. Number 3, Florida. Florida is another state that has a lot of different problems that are basically challenges for the state dealing with the homeless. One of them is the weather. They have such nice weather most of the year. That's a lot of people will move there. I talked about earlier how you have different places like Cleveland where you have a whole bunch of people and they just suffer during the winter. Well, the ones that can head to places like California and Florida so they don't have to deal with that. I mean, it's bad enough when you're homeless, but when you're homeless and you're trying not to freeze to death, there's a little bit of a strange thing though in Florida. A lot, I would say a lot, but they have an odd percentage or an odd amount of homeless people living in their rural communities. You find that also up in West Virginia and Tennessee and Kentucky. Currently, Florida has 29,587 people living on the streets. Number 2, New York State. The homeless population of New York State is really a problem with New York City. That's where 99% of their homeless live, is in New York City. New York City is a wonderful city and it does great things for the state of New York, but sometimes the stats kind of affect the whole state. And when it comes to the homeless situation, yeah, it's a big factor in New York State. New York is home to a significant number of individuals experiencing homelessness. These individuals face a range of challenges, including inadequate access to shelter, healthcare, and economic opportunities. The reason behind their homelessness is, there's a lot of different reasons, but one of the main reasons after the big ones is affordable housing. They just don't have any anymore. They've tried all the things like rent control, but over time, that can only go so far. Currently, New York State has 91,271 people living on the streets. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for that down below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Vermont. No, just kidding. California. The homeless population in California has long been a pressing and complex issue. This state, known for its wealth and prosperity, harbors one of the largest homeless populations in the United States. And a lot of them are in 2 different places, the Tenderloin in San Francisco and Skid Row in Los Angeles. Skid Row looks like it's something out of just some scary movie. It's gotten to the point down there where they're just trying to contain it. They don't really try and fix the situation in Skid Row. The police and different organizations kind of, just let it be the Wild West and hope it works itself out, I guess. One bad thing about Skid Row, it's part of Little Tokyo, which is a nice neighborhood in Southern California, in Los Angeles area, where people go and do touristy stuff. Well, Skid Row's actually part of it. Most people don't understand that. And if you look at the stats for Little Tokyo, you're, oh my God, that place is a nightmare. But then you actually go to Little Tokyo, and it's a really nice place, nice part of Los Angeles. And I'm sure the people in Little Tokyo would love to section off that part of Skid Row and, just make it its own thing. Now, buckle up for this one. Currently, there are 162,548 people experiencing homelessness in California. Now, I've seen other studies from organizations with agendas that say it's 300 and 400,000. Like I said, I saw that one guy in a newscast said it was getting to or just over 1 million. 162,000 is a lot of people to be living on the streets in a country, not just a state. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.